There are particular features of markets and institutions that legitimately differ by country, and this means that global standards need to be flexible enough to cover these differences. Now, an enormous amount of work has been done by the G20 on this front. We've been working through the Basel Committee to ensure these new standards are appropriately calibrated to support the continued flow of credit. But new standards alone are not enough. They need to be enforced, and that means effective supervision. Australia has always believed that standards and supervision are two sides of the same coin of strong, sound financial systems. In Australia, we've got tough regulators who've been consistently tough with our banks. We fondly refer to them as watchdogs. They bark, and sometimes they bite with teeth. Both our nations also support the general principle that the financial sector should contribute a fair share of the costs of bailouts. That's why I moved in 2008, before the collapse of Lehman Brothers, to put in place a financial claims scheme in Australia. This provides a framework to recover taxpayers' money in the event of a bank failure, although we have never had to use this power. But it's also really important to remember that the crisis didn't play out the same way in every country. In Australia, we did bring in a wholesale funding guarantee so that our banks could keep competing in global capital markets on a level playing field. But our banks were resilient enough to be able to pay a fee at the time for access to the guarantee, so our taxpayers didn't fit any bill. While we need to continue our cooperation at the G20, it will always be the case that countries will need to tailor global agreements to suit domestic circumstances. That is, one size doesn't fit all. And I know this is a view that we share with Prime Minister Harper and Finance Minister Flaherty. The second area to focus on is fiscal sustainability. Concerns over fiscal sustainability in some European countries and the associated volatility in global financial markets is an enduring reminder that risks do remain in the global economy. And of course, this underscores the need for advanced deficit economies across the world to establish credible fiscal plans. But the speed and timing of this consolidation must be tailored to national circumstances, so we do not derail the recovery which is already underway. In Australia, we're consolidating public finances while still ensuring appropriate support for weaker sectors of the economy. And of course, this leads me to the third area where the G20 has a critical role to play: growth sustainability. Central to this is achieving balanced growth. That is why China's recent announcement to increase the flexibility of its currency is a welcome development. It is a constructive contribution that recognises China's economic integration with the global economy and the fact that its increasing economic size and associated policy settings do impact on others. It's a move that is in China's best economic interest, and it will help produce a more balanced global economy. But while China's enhanced exchange rate flexibility is important, it's only one element of a broader suite of structural reform policies that will assist in rebalancing growth. And of course, sustainable growth is not just about rebalancing growth, it's also about lifting growth. It's about lifting future growth potential. Put differently, we must lift global growth, not simply shift it. This means all countries need to pursue hard structural reforms at home. And it also means that these hard reforms, while difficult politically, must be put in place if we are to be successful. Part of Australia's economic success during the global crisis was built on a 25-year program of comprehensive structural reform. This has helped Australia stay ahead of the game, but we are not resting on our laurels. We're moving on to the next phase of economic reforms to strengthen and to secure our economy. Reforms like ensuring our health and pension systems are well equipped to deal with ageing populations. That is absolutely critical. Like expanding productive capacity in education and infrastructure, and through our high-speed national broadband network. And importantly, reforming the tax system to strengthen and to broaden our economy. We are overhauling the old royalty system of taxing resources, which discouraged investment, replacing it with a profits-based system that will encourage investment. And we are directing the proceeds to fundamental reforms that will strengthen the economy. Reforms like cutting the corporate tax rate so businesses can compete strongly, superannuation reforms that lift national savings, and infrastructure investment to build export capacity. It's not just Australia that faces a challenging reform agenda. All countries will confront reform challenges in areas particular to their economic circumstances. But there is at least one challenge that we all face collectively, and that is the challenge of avoiding trade protectionism, especially in tough times. The G20 has played a major role in ensuring we have not slid into a protectionist race to the bottom. Trade is central to our efforts to promote a sustainable recovery in the medium term. Concluding Doha would provide a strong confidence boost for the global economy, and on some estimates, between $150 to $500 billion in GDP gains annually. To bring this all together, it is these three areas that I've mentioned: financial fiscal sustainability and growth sustainability, which will allow the G20 to restore a global economic order that is strong, balanced and sustainable. Now, of course, it is this global economic order that will also see a profound shift in the weight of economic activity in the Asian region. As we move forward, this will be the Asian century. This region already represents more than half of global production and close to half of world trade. China has become the world's second largest economy. Japan remains a regional economic powerhouse, and Korea is going from strength to strength. India has been one of the world's fastest growing large economies since 1994, and Indonesia is a significant emerging market. Asia is becoming the engine room of global growth. According to the IMF, Asia's economy will grow by 50% over the next 5 years. And by 2030, Asia could well be the world's biggest economic region, exceeding that of the G7. Now, of course, Australia and Canada are uniquely placed to benefit from Asia's expansion, given our proximity and our abundance of mineral resources. Asia's strong growth is already driving commodity prices back to boom time levels, and Australia's terms of trade towards a 60-year high. These opportunities are why we are determined to put in place an efficient system of taxing resources that will strengthen our economy and provide an enduring legacy for all of our people. The dynamism of the Asia-Pacific means that our region is becoming not only the centre of global economic weight, but also of strategic weight. It's where the critical template of relations between the world's only superpower, the United States, and the world's rising power, China, will be forged. It's where the other great powers, India, Japan and Russia, will jostle in an increasingly dynamic strategic landscape. Managing this strategic dynamic to foster habits of cooperation and minimise the risk of conflict is as great a challenge as our global economic enterprise in the G20. Again, this requires action. We need to work together to shape the future we would like to see, and of course to avoid one that we may regret. For Australia, like Canada, this means strong bilateral relationships with the key countries in the region. Of course, I don't need to tell Canadians how important the United States is. It will continue to underpin regional stability and security for the foreseeable future, and our government is committed to further strengthening our most critical alliance. At the same time, we are strengthening our relations with Japan, Korea and India. Our relationship with China has transformed in recent years. It is now our largest trading partner, and we continue to build a multi-layered relationship, including security cooperation. Just earlier this week, China's Vice President was in Australia signing mining investment contracts worth billions of dollars. But bilateral relationships need to be complemented by effective multilateral forums of cooperation. This is particularly the case here in the Asia-Pacific, where its growth and dynamism will inevitably see tensions and rub. That's why Australia so strongly supports effective regional architecture such as APEC, where we work side by side with Canada and, of course, the East Asia Summit. Now, of course, all of that brings me back to the G20. The biggest Asia-Pacific players are all present and accounted for in the G20. The G20 seriously expands Asia's stake in global economic governance, from Japan's solitary role in the G8 to a situation where Japan, China, Korea, India, Indonesia and Australia are all at the G20 table. At the dawn of the Asian century, we now have an institution that is configured to reflect these new realities. This will ensure that the most dynamic region in the world is actively engaged in shaping the world for the benefit of our peoples and generations to come. On the evidence to date, the G20 is fulfilling this promise, and I'm confident that our meetings tomorrow will continue in this vein, and that through the G20 we can get it right. We can usher in a new age of global stability and growth. For the G20 as a whole, the opportunity to manage a new age of global growth and stability is ours, but it's also our responsibility. We will not waste this opportunity. Thank you.